According to a new report from Reuters, some of Donald Trump's closest political allies are laying out the beginnings of a plan to take far more direct control over the Department of Justice than perhaps ever before seen in American history, and turning it into an effective daily attack dog for conservative causes as well as specifically Donald Trump. They basically say that because he's the head of the executive branch, he should have unilateral broad powers to command and oversee the Justice Department as he sees fit. Basically, think about all of the things that they've said Joe Biden is doing, whether he is or not, and they would never accept him doing. Those are all the things that naturally they think that Donald Trump should do if he wins. And so the idea that there would be relative independence or impartiality, this sort of soft wall between the White House and the DOJ, that would effectively be gone. And we want to break down, and this is based on 9 different people that Reuters talked to that are laying out the groundwork of this plan, the 2 major parts of how it would function in practice. So the first is that they plan to flood the Justice Department with stalwart conservatives unlikely to say no to controversial orders from the White House. And that is true of what they want to do with the DOJ. I would assume that that's probably the main goal of every one of these departments and agencies. They did not like that in some occasions, Donald Trump was stymied in his efforts to accomplish his goals or break the law or overturn the results of an election, and they don't want to have those same troubles in a second term. But the second part is they want to restructure the department so key decisions are concentrated in the hands of administration loyalists rather than career bureaucrats. And so basically, the way that most of these bureaucracies work is you have like a top layer of people that the president and his team choose. And when they come in, they do that across most of the federal bureaucracy. But the rest are not political appointees in that way. They're experts. They're people with experience that have possibly been working across multiple presidencies, perhaps multiple decades, to make sure that the government actually functions, which is important to you if you believe that the government should function for anyone other than the president. But if all you care about is having another tool for him to hound his political opponents, protect himself from oversight, win an election that he didn't actually win, then this new formulation of the DOJ would be far preferable. And many of these aides are saying it. Steve Bannon is talking about the personnel as well as the institutional problems of the DOJ. But then, as we'll get to, Donald Trump has also been very clear about his plan when it comes to the Justice Department. Cenk, how do you think this would look in practice?
Yeah, this is exactly what I'm worried about with Donald Trump. So, I've got 1,000 problems with Joe Biden, but destroying the Department of Justice and democracy ain't one of them. Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you. I'm so curious what's gonna happen, and unfortunately it looks like we're all gonna find out together. I think Trump has an excellent chance of winning. I think there's no chance that he does not do this. He will definitely do it. He will, and what does it mean to have a Department of Justice that is not impartial? I guess political trials, arresting political opponents, maybe media opponents, and that's what I've been saying all along that I'm worried about with Donald Trump. So this is, they're not even hiding it. Project 2025 is just kind of a just planned destruction of our democracy. So they're planning at the Heritage Foundation, bunch of Trump allies, and killing off the Justice Department's neutrality is just one of the components here. It's going to be a disaster. And then do people get super mad at Trump and then the Republicans become intensely unpopular and that helps to rein them in? And eventually we have an election in 2028, and as awful as those 4 years are, we recover and we go left-wing populist. That's a really optimistic view of what could happen, but that's a small chance. The much larger chance, in my opinion, is they just dismantle the whole thing. 4 years is too long. It's too long for a bunch of guys who are saying ahead of time, we are going to dismantle this government. We're not interested in democracy. We're not, so, I mean, the Department of Justice being a fair arbiter of justice is a definitional thing. Like by definition, that's what it must do. If justice is not blind, and I know what the Trumpers think, oh, it wasn't blind to us, etc. I know. Okay, except the guy did do all those crimes. He did. It makes a giant difference if he did the crimes or if he didn't do the crimes. So look, this same Department of Justice has now gone after Senator Bob Menendez, who's a Democrat in New Jersey. They've gone after Cuellar in Texas, who's a Democrat. So no, they're not making political decisions. They're just going after the crooks, and Trump happens to be one. In fact, the Department of Justice didn't go after Trump for 2.5 years, which I thought was absolutely egregious. Yeah. They were too soft, too kind to Donald Trump. I know, you'll never believe it. I know, I got it, right? But the bottom line here is, it's gonna be a super rough ride, guys, for 4 years. And this dismantling of the Justice Department is a terrible, terrible sign. And look, if you're a Republican and a Democrat said they were gonna do this, you would lose your mind, and you know you would. But if a Republican promises it or Trump promises it, you think, oh great, let's destroy the FBI and the Department of Justice and arrest all of our political opponents. That sounds like freedom? No, it doesn't. It doesn't sound like America at all. Mondo.
Don't forget, this is the Republican Party that backs the blue while they tried to defund the police in the same space. I mean, this is what it means to be Republican in this moment in 2024 behind Donald Trump. I absolutely believe that if Donald Trump wins this election, he will try to get rid of the Justice Department. Bill Barr had too much freedom, even though he was too conservative for my blood. It was not enough for Donald Trump, because Donald Trump, like Hitler, needs undying loyalty to him. Nothing else, not the party, not the Constitution, nothing, not police officers, just Trump. And if you're not 100% loyal to Trump, then you're anti-American, you're anti-MAGA, you're anti-Republican, you are a rhino. Meaning that the Republican Party is no longer a party of a platform, it's a personality of one. And you must commit that you love this personality. You can't even like him, you must love him. And once you do, then he may recognize you and you may be allowed to do this. If you don't believe me, look at how many Republicans left work, Congress, left work and went to New York to stand outside of a courtroom, a justice office, right? A courtroom is a justice office, to stand outside of there and take up for Trump and berate the justice system. None of them, mind you, not in their district or anywhere else in this country, has ever spoken up to the ill treatment that black men receive from the justice system, which is a real two-tiered system that can be documented, that has been documented, that we should be talking about. Yet and still we're talking about this supposedly billionaire who breaks laws in all aspects of life, and they're upset that he's being held accountable. This is a retaliation, not just to about the Justice Department, about the FBI. It's a retaliation that, how dare you stand in the way of what whiteness is? And whiteness is MAGA. This idea of making America great again, all is couched in making America work only for white people again. Yeah. And I don't care how we dress it up. White Rural Rage is a book that was written. It was a New York bestseller when it came out, and it articulates this extremely well using a bunch of data. And Cenk, here's what I would say. I don't know if Donald Trump has a good chance of winning this election. And I'm not saying it's gonna be because of Joe Biden, that Joe Biden will win. I am saying that if I'm a person who loves polls and to make them look ridiculous, if you look at May 13th, like this last poll that came out from New York Times, if you look at May 13th and every presidential election for the past 3 or 4, the person that won that election was losing that week of the polls. So right now, Donald Trump being up is on par for where Hillary Clinton was, on par for where what's the guy who Mitt Romney was against Barack Obama, and also John McCain. So all I know is looking at the polls, because Biden is down, it may be telling us something else. Also, I think it's crazy that we're still measuring enthusiasm. Nobody's enthusiastic to go vote for Joe Biden, but that doesn't mean they won't vote for Joe Biden, not for him per se, but for what's possible under his administration versus what you got to deal with the Trump administration.
I agree with the vast majority of what you just said. I'm glad that we had a couple of people that, although we might have guessed that they would be, that they were not just a rubber stamp for literally everything that Donald Trump said. I mean, Jeff Sessions recused himself, that Comey didn't give him exactly what he wanted. As you said, Bill Barr did not give him exactly what he wanted. They are going to be way more focused on loyalty. And look, I personally think we're talking about hypotheticals. I think if we want to test this hypothetical, the Biden administration should just get the text of Project 2025 and say, that's what we're going to do. Literally this text, you guys love this, so we're gonna do that. That's what the DOJ is gonna be. It's gonna be your model, and Fox News will absolutely lose their mind. And on what you said, Cenk, about, there's a possible silver lining of maybe if it's really bad for 4 years, then a progressive takes over, and maybe that's a silver lining. But if it's an intentional strategy for someone, I will remind everyone there were people saying that in 2016, and 4 years of Trump being really bad did not deliver us a progressive candidate. It gave us 4 years of Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And so, dangerous strategy.
Yeah, let me be clear, that is not my strategy, and I think it's a terrible strategy. I said it was a terrible strategy in 2016 when some clowns were saying it, but there is a difference here. Back then, the establishment had not been completely discredited. I think they have now. And I think that people hate the establishment. And you can see in the New York Times polling that we're going to talk about later in the show. And so I think they're done with the establishment. They might be done after Trump with the right-wing populists and then go to a left-wing populist. But like I said from the get-go, that is wishful thinking, okay? That's a small probability. We should try to avoid dismantling the Department of Justice and politicizing it first. That is a much, much bigger priority. And look, if you're a Republican, again, I know nobody believes me because everybody thinks that everybody's a partisan, right? But if I was a Republican, I would be furious at Trump because Biden is so easy to defeat. The only way that you could lose to Biden is if you're a moron who goes around saying, yeah, I'm going to dismantle the Department of Justice and the FBI, and I'm going to make them serve my dictatorial whims. And even Sessions and Bill Barr, the most conservative, barbaric people pre-Trump, post-Trump, in the middle of Trump that I've ever seen in my political life. They're not right-wing enough because they weren't loyal to the mob boss, right? This is just, you can't stomach not voting against Trump because of things like this. So if you're a Republican, he's trying to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Yeah. This is the only way you could lose to Biden. And it's not hysteria, it's not hyped up BS. They wrote it down. It's definitely real, and they're going to definitely dismantle huge parts of our democracy and our system of justice. And they're gonna bring in this kind of right-wing fascism. And if you're into that, okay, but you can't be into that and be into America and freedom at the same time. Pick your side. I choose with America and freedom. If you want to choose with, hey, the Justice Department should just be a place where we, flay our political enemies. Okay, then just at least admit to yourself that you're pro-fascism and not really democracy.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.